All right, so let's get started. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to hashtag BKOT, right? We are on episode 46. Very exciting to bring on an offshore colleague of mine. We've met through, I forgot how we met. I think it was just him being out in the UK and doing this similar objectives that we are. Came about together through literally an email, and here we are today to talk about bookkeeping systems and how to kind of integrate and use them with your offshore staff. And so Malcolm Palmer, Managing Partner at A4G LLP, joins us today. Malcolm, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I run an accountancy practice in the UK. We've got about 70 people in a mix of different locations in UK and offshore. Practice has grown from over 25 years, never had a year where we didn't grow, and we've sort of built it really on the premise that we do about 70% of what we do is repeat work, all the stuff that people have to have done, and 30% is the stuff they get a value from. But the model really is that if you look at where our clients come from, the 90% of our clients come to us for that 30%, for that value-added stuff, the stuff they get a benefit from. But of course, once we've got them, we keep them year after year, and different needs and wants arise. So it's all about getting that balance between delivering the routine stuff well and efficiently, so that you can then earn the real profits by doing all the clever stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Now, let's go a few steps to see how it all got started. So, how long have you been offshoring in general, and then specifically, when did it start with bookkeeping, or did it start with bookkeeping?
No, funnily enough, bookkeeping was fairly late to the game. Really, we took on our first offshore member of staff in late 2003, and we sort of looked at a few outsourcing services that were around then. It was pretty early days; there wasn't many people doing it. and it just didn't quite fit our model. We didn't like the thought of just giving all our work to another company who then do it in their way. We really wanted to have people offshore that became part of our organisation, and that we could get doing the work in a way that fitted with everything else. So we put a little ad in I think it was the Delhi Chamber of Commerce newsletter, or maybe an Indian Chamber of Commerce or something like that. And we had a few people that contacted us, and they filled in the questionnaire that we completed, and some of them, it was utterly disastrous, and what they sent us was rubbish. And but a couple of a little firm out there did quite a good spec, and we started taking one or two people on at that point, really. And the whole premise has been, and different firms, you don't have to buy completely into my philosophy, but our whole premise has been that we want to push the work that's done in the background offshore, and we want our staff in the UK to be freed up to spend more time talking to the clients. Nobody ever left their accountant because the end of year accounts weren't formatted in the right style, or they leave their accountant because their accountant didn't return their calls, or they didn't get any advice on all these things. So the staff in the UK were just drowning in accounts and paperwork and all the routine stuff. So over the time we've been doing it, it's been all about shifting that sort of work away from them. The bookkeeping was interesting because I'd sort of spent the first half of our business really avoiding bookkeeping. We had relationships with one or two local all ladies, as it happened, bookkeepers, and we'd recommend clients to them and they'd recommend clients to us, and sometimes the quality wasn't what we wanted it to be, and my partners really felt that we should have our own internal bookkeeping arrangement so that we could offer the whole solution, really, rather than it being an important profit-making section of our business. Again, it's just a way of keeping those clients tight to us and providing them with all those services. So the bookkeeping was way behind accounts, tax returns, our internal work that we do, even HR stuff we were doing before bookkeeping. And but once we sort of launched that bookkeeping business, we felt it was very important that a big percentage of the repeat work was going to be done offshore. So, and that sort of progressed over the last 5-6 years, really.
Now, when talking about the value-added task in which your folks in the UK should be doing, but they're not returning a phone call, I mean, that is critical. And so you're absolutely right how offshore staff, these processes in place and identifying the roles and tasks which can be done by a remote worker, anybody. And so it's very important. And I always find that folks are just always 60-70% of the time they're just working in that administrative side or compliance side, and it doesn't have to be like that. And so what would you say that some of the biggest challenges are to getting this off the ground and that you've seen working with clients?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge is winning the hearts and minds of some of your senior team in the UK. And we had a lady working for us who was very loud and opinionated, and was always telling everybody internally how important she was to the firm. But in fact, was it was funny how many things that went wrong in the firm seemed to have involved her, and she, I'm going to make it sound like it's one person. She was the worst of a few people, and she left about 2 years after we started offshore. And I think I did a little dance when she went out the door, because she really didn't want it to happen. She was a qualified accountant. She wasn't capable of delivering those value-added services. So therefore, the compliance stuff was like a comfort blanket. It was like, hang on, I need to hang on to this work because I don't want to do this other stuff that's too hard. And I think you've got to talk to your team about why it's important. If it's just about cost, then you can't lie to your team. They're gonna smell that. So they need to see what's in it for them. And what's been in it for our team is that it has allowed people to progress much quicker. If somebody's doing a repeat job and they're capable of doing a bit more, you can't promote them into that next job up unless you've got somebody to take the work away that they're doing at the moment. Otherwise, it's all going to fall down, right? Yep. So I made it very clear to people that you get your systems right. We bring in somebody offshore to do that work. You train them up, get it running really smoothly, and then this is what I want you to do after that. And and it's so important that you tell them that this is what I want you to do after that, because otherwise they're just going to be thinking, well, what am I going to be doing? Perhaps I'm going to train this person up and then I'm out. So you've got to get the people behind it, and you've got to perhaps teach them how to work with somebody offshore. The lady I mentioned, I think I said this to you before when we were on we did a little presentation before. I caught her saying one day India got this wrong. And I went, well, hold on a minute. This is a country with 1 billion people in it. You can't pin this one accounts error on an entire country. And but it just
So dramatic. Wow.
Absolutely. India got this wrong. If one of our juniors got it wrong, you wouldn't say juniors got this wrong. You wouldn't blame all of our juniors for one person's mistake. And it was difficult to get some of those people talking. I mean, actually talking to colleagues offshore. The pandemic's has been fantastic for. I mean, I think we were pretty good at it already, but once the pandemic happened, I did a little office email to all my team one weekend, and I said, we're all offshore now. Because here we were, I was sitting here, ended up with a big dent in this chair. I spent so many bloody hours sitting in it, and I think it kind of brought home to everybody that it doesn't matter where you are. We're all working in this way. And even though we're sort of back to normal now, a lot of us work from home a bit more often than we did. And it's just a much more fluid way of working. But, you've got to get your team to buy into that. And if you think that you can just take this big lump of work and throw it out there and hope that it's going to stick, it's not. You've got to plan this. You've got to have thought through how you're going to deliver the work, what the reporting structures are going to be, between the different people involved. No different to any other big challenge, really.
That was a great story. I could easily relate, and it's about. Like you said, the attitude and the mindset of folks. She didn't say this particular person, she said the whole country. And so that type of thought process, though, is it's a little bit difficult to work with because there's no open-minded. They're not open-minded whatsoever, and you can't have some folks with the whole offshoring concept. You can't have some all in. You can't have some not for it, and you can't have some kind of debating both sides and going back. And it just won't work. You got to have everybody on the same page and the right mindset. And if it's not right for the firm, it's not right. But you have to at least try, explore, and see what the options are. But yeah, and you're not always going to get 100% buy-in, but you'll get majority where everyone sees the benefit and sees and understands, right, this is all about complementing our local team, remote team, onshore team, whatever you want to call it. Or it's about the reducing the workload, being able to help them serve their clients better. And when you start seeing the value, yeah, I mean, this thing takes off. And so I could easily relate to what you were saying. Now, when so we talked about kind of how to get this initiated, but yeah, that's the biggest question I get is the workflow process, right? So can you talk a little bit about some the systems in place? Or is it more about documenting it? Is it more about using technology? Is it a combination? Or let's hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so our sort of, I'm a bit of a systems anorak, and there's a book called you may have read, called the EMyth Revisited by a guy called Michael Gerber. And the EMyth, the entrepreneurial myth, is that people run businesses, whereas in fact most of them work in a business that they also own. And if you take them out of that business, the business ceases to exist, So there's a lot in the EMyth about how Ray Kroc bought into the McDonald Brothers business and and replicated it over and over again. And I was, years before we had started offshoring, we were growing quite well, but there was just lots of silly little details that were going wrong. And we were part of a bigger firm back then. I sort of broke away a few years later, but so I had this senior partner, who was a really good guy, he was a good sounding board for a few things. And I said to him, you know, about all these silly little things that are going wrong. You know, I get a phone call from a client who'd say, oh, we've got this letter from you, Malcolm, and it says that form XB3 is in the envelope and there's no form in the envelope. And you just go, oh, God, you know, this is stupid, you know, and I'd sort of moan at my admin member of staff and how can you send this out when the form's not in the envelope? And then I read the EMyth, and the EMyth is all about systems. So I started to write these systems, and, you know, anytime anything went wrong, I wrote a system, and that started to help improve things. But actually, it didn't solve the problem, because people had to know that there was a written system, and if they didn't know there was a written system, or they didn't know they were responsible for it, then they still weren't going to follow it, you know. So I sort of revisited it a couple of years down the line, and I realised that the mistake that I'd made was to focus on the systems. Whereas what I should have done is, well, not to focus on the systems, but to start with the systems. What I should have done is I should have started with the roles. And roles are so important within an organisation, and they're so badly misunderstood by most organisations. Most people think that each person in their business has a role, whereas in fact, most people have several roles within the business, and there are certain roles which, you know, we call them multi-roles, where there's a pool of work which is shared out amongst a group of people. So to make your business, to sort of break through that, you know, 10, 11 member of staff type size, you know, a lot of people struggle to get past that. That's almost their cap. You know, they can manage a business of that size, they don't get beyond it. And part of the reason they don't get beyond it is because they haven't properly documented the different roles that exist within the business. I mean, I could bang on about this for hours, and you'd probably be nodding off over there, Chris. So, you know, I won't go into any more detail other than to say that if you can identify those key roles in your business and all the responsibilities that go with it, then when you allocate those roles to individuals, they know what they're responsible for. The detail behind it may have to follow. They may have to work out some of that detail themselves, but at least they know they're responsible for it. So, you know, you may have a role called offshore coordinator, and, you know, that's not a role in our organisation, but because, you know, but that might be a good place to start if you're new to offshoring. And you set out the responsibilities for the offshore coordinator. You know, that they need to make sure that the offshore staff have got enough work to do. They need to teach the onshore staff better ways of managing. They need to make sure that the IT is working. You know, set out all of these responsibilities and give it to one person. If you give it to two people, it never works. You know, you've got three situations then. Either both of them will do it, which is inefficient. One of them will do it and one won't, great, but possibly neither of them will do it, which is the most likely scenario. So you just need one person to do those things. And then from there, you've got an infrastructure to build from. Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, and our whole systems methodology comes from that. You know, that's where our bookkeeping approach is all based on these key roles. I mean, we've got this account manager role and bookkeeping specialist role. And for us, the account manager is always in the UK. Now, that may change in years to come, you know, as there's just, we feel at the moment, because the account manager is all about the relationship with the client. Yep. So, you know, they meet the client when we're going to do the bookkeeping. They allocate the work to the bookkeeping specialist. The bookkeeping specialist can be anywhere in the world. You know, they could be one of our juniors that we've, you know, taken on straight out of school and we want to train them up with those skills. They could be in India, you know, they could be just working from home 15 miles down the road, but, you know, have a disability that makes it unable for them to get into the office. It, you know, it really doesn't matter where that bookkeeping specialist role is, but they sit in the background and they do the work, and then they push it back to the account manager who then communicates it across to the client. And then all the systems we've written all support those roles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what you're saying is a perfect way to get started, because sometimes I feel that folks get overwhelmed, or they just can't identify, or trying to complicate something that's just very easy, right? You need to identify, right, the roles, the tasks, the activities, how many hours is that, who's going to be kind of the anchor, what you're saying, your coordinator onshore, and just getting all that set up. And then, you can are interested in working with associates anywhere you're ready. But I do find that a lot of folks do both at the same time. They're just like, I don't know what to do, how to go about it, but I'm going to do everything at once. And it becomes definitely overwhelming. So if you have that, kind of pre-work in the beginning, then yeah, it starts to, things will build out a lot smoother for sure. As we are winding down, can you share an expert tip or any final thoughts with us before we go today?
An expert tip. Well, I could always just have a little look at our website. But I mean, we're an accountancy practice. We have a little sideline here where we help other accountancy practices get their bookkeeping offering or payroll offering up and running. So if you Google A4G offshoring, you'll find a page there. I think what do I give as the number one tip? I think the first thing is just to think about what identify the work that you want to offshore. That's your first thing, and then create a role around it. So it could be payroll, it could be bookkeeping, it could be accounts preparation, but start with one thing. Don't expect you can just bring somebody in and just to do a bit of everything. You're trying to create you're trying to create your factory, your workshop in the background. So you start with something that you can that there's a lot of it, and it's a lot of it is repeat stuff, and just get that right. Just work at it and work at it. And when you've got that right, you can move on to something else in a few months' time. And that would be my advice.
Yeah, what you're saying is a gradual approach, and so you may have 8 positions open, 2 positions, whatever it may be. You just got to start slow, identify what's the priority 1A per se, and get this rolling. And I agree. The what you guys do in helping the practice out is very important. And then folks out there in the accounting industry need resources to get them through these new times of virtual digital age. I mean, for us, just sat here the whole time, and not much has changed, right? I've worked remotely for several years. It's not easy, but once you practice it and you live it, it's made, and now folks are realizing that anybody can do it. So thank you for your time today, Malcolm. Really appreciate you sharing your ideas and thoughts. And for bookkeeping, especially, that's what I was going to say. Bookkeeper, a lot of clients that I work with don't want to take it on. And this is a great opportunity to take it on and not having to do, right, so much, where you just onboard the clients in a certain way, and then you have the systems processes in place. It's a whole new revenue stream. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
All right, folks, check out the A4G offshoring on Google search, or a4g-llp.co.uk, and check them out. Malcolm, again, thanks so much for the rest of your evening. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.